You already know what I'm gonna say, right? That was a grind. We're talking like a whole week of work right here. Not just building this thing, designing it in creative mode took forever. Then I had to gather the resources, then I had to build it, then I had to time-lapse and edit it. It's been a lot of work to get this thing finished, and you know what? It's not actually finished yet, but this episode is the episode where we say, hey, we're done with this project, it is finished, and whew, look at this exterior. I had to really challenge myself here. Now, I'm not going to say that it's a work of art and that it's something spectacular. I think you could point out a lot of flaws with this, right? There's a lot of space that needed to be filled, but I felt it was something. I challenged myself and I learned quite a few things along the way. Now, if you enjoyed the crazy time-lapse at the beginning of this video, be sure to leave a like on this episode. I know you hear that all the time here on YouTube. It's a little bit lame, but supposedly it helps and makes a difference. And so if you want to show me some encouragement and support this episode, be sure to do that. Look at that. It's crazy. The first thing we're going to be talking about here is this big wall at the back, which admittedly isn't terribly interesting, but we've got a really fascinating thing going on here with the block palette. So we're going to start this off with a mini tutorial of sorts on how you can use World Edit to help you design things. I also want to give a big shout out to BOO, who was bouncing some ideas back and forth with me when I needed help with this build, showed me how to do some really cool stuff in World Edit. So to explain what we're going to do, we start off with a block palette of textures that we want to fade from something dark to something light, or from one color to another. Now, in order to translate that to a giant wall so that when you look at it, all the dark materials at the bottom and slowly it gets lighter as you head to the top, we're going to need to change the wall so that it has some different materials that then we replace with these over here. Things first, we need to use two commands. One of them is to set a mask of stone. This means that we're only going to change the stone blocks when we click with our brush, which I'm going to set up as this spectral arrow that I'm holding. The second command is telling the brush it's going to be a sphere shape of white wall, and the size of the sphere is going to be 3. That has now been set to this brush, so when I look and click at this wall, it then changes the stone into white wall, which is what we want. Now here's where things get interesting. We get to shape the gradient where the dark materials are going to change to the lighter ones by plotting down these different colors. And I can click anywhere I like here, so we can kind of get like a smaller amount in some areas and a larger in others. And we're going to give this a bit of a scoop, so it kind of gets low in the middle but rises on the sides. And you know, technically I don't actually need to change the last of it because stone is left over, so we can just replace stone. But now when we step back, you can see that kind of color gradient, and we're going to translate it using commands to these materials. So here are the commands we're going to use. This looks complicated, but trust me, it's not. You can see we're replacing white wall, then pink wall with the second command, magenta, purple, and blue, etc. And then with this, I've just broken down the commands so you can see what's going on. It's percentages of the different types of material. So we can have higher of the dark colors for white wall, and then as we go down the walls, you'll see that the numbers change and some of the lighter textures start to appear with higher percentages. So now we're going to see this command in action in game, and this is where the magic starts to happen. And now you can see that playing out here. Remember, we put more of the darker colors higher up the sides, and you can see that translating with the distribution of all of these blocks. Now, you could place these yourself randomly, but it would take a really long time on a large scale, and this is just a fantastic technique for getting that detail to work. And those color transitions, they just look fantastic with this. And so there is that comparison again. You can really feel the transition, and this is the technique that I use to come up with the block placement for all of this. And you know what? It looks pretty fantastic, but yes, it is just a big old wall, you know, covering the back here. I didn't have anything special to put in this place. But as for the rest of the build, we got to use some of the green block palette again on the sides over here. These, by the way, are magma creams, which is part of the whole brewing process, right? So it's a way for us to take that circular shape that was there at the front and apply it again. And obviously we've introduced some basalt over here with these windows. We got more of the kelp being used. And at the very top here, we got some of the lightest stone blocks. Again, taking tips from B-dubs of having darker things at the bottom and then lighter things at the top. We use some smooth stone and andesite up here. Anyways, we're not done with the time-lapsing just yet. There's one last finishing touch I got to put on this build. I just wanted to point out how like crazy the interiors feel from in here, and every now and then there's like a couple of blocks that I miss, so I need to go around and fill those in and also spawn-proof the area. But let's get some music going. Very short time-lapse here. One last thing to add to the build. Well, that, my friends, is a beautiful finishing touch. A blaze to signify pretty much everything that's going on here, right? You can't have a brewery without the blazes. Oh, and by the way, this is going to be my entrance into this place now. I'm actually going to open it up. And when it comes to doing the inside of this area, it's going to be like a live stream project now. I'm going to build some walkways and ways to access all of the different materials that need stocking up, add some lights to indicate when stock is low. But I just feel like that's a live stream thing now. But for this episode, there are two things left on the list, and then the list is actually finished in its entirety. And one of them I've just finished doing, which is to add access to the Netherwalk Farm down below. So whenever we get round to tidying up this area and making access for it in a live stream, we'll also hook this thing up. As you can see, there is a way down, which takes us to our glorious AFK Nether Farm with its wonderful build palette down here. And then, of course, we've got a way back up again. Now that will just leave us with one thing left on the list over here, and that is to add note blocks to the brewer. So we're going to craft a bunch of these, and we're going to make the brewing experience a little bit musical. So we're going to do some relatively simple modifications down here. I think all we need are repeaters, note blocks, and I've got some wool to put them on top of. And it's down here where you modify the potions that we're going to add this stuff. I feel like if we did it up top, there would just be noises going off all the time. So when a hermit comes and puts their shulker box full of potions into the modifier, they get some feedback from the sounds to let them know what's happening. And yes, you might have noticed that I've been adding composters in here. That is to reduce the lag. I've still got a long way to go with this, but the idea is that I'm going to put them on top of every single hopper eventually. And that will help reduce lag. Composters on top of hoppers is supposedly the best way to do that. So anyway, first modification that each of these will receive is a note block down this end. In fact, all of them are going to pretty much have to be down this end anyway. So we'll add one right here, and then what we'll do is have a repeater going over to the next one, so it'll make one sound after the other. And this line of redstone here, it gets activated 3 times when a shulker box is put in. So they'll hear 3 dings first of all. Now once all 3 rows of potions have been loaded in, this block here gets powered, and we can draw a signal from that and bring it all the way around to the front. And just down here we're going to have yet another note block. Now this line of redstone gets unpowered and then it gets powered again. If I just put a note block there, I believe it activates when it gets powered again. I could also give these things different sounds, right? But it's the block that you put underneath it, and we might not have that level of flexibility. You know what? Having thought about it, we're actually going to take a different approach. We're going to put the note blocks right here close to where the player stands. They're going to be standing literally above, so we can have the space to control what sounds are heard. And then we'll probably have a sequence of notes, and we'll run a redstone signal into it from these other locations. So rather than squeezing in the note blocks at these various points, I mean, I could kind of attach them all over the place because there's loads of redstone being fired off. But what we'll do is we'll take the various bits of redstone and lead it round to a single point where the note blocks fire. Note blocks, I could get lost in this, but it's painfully slow. But after a while I came up with a little jingle. Just a really nice shimmering sound to let you know that things are happening. And also, when the shulker box arrives here to go up, we could put a sound down here in this little space very easily. And I'm pretty much going to go with the highest pitch that we can get. So when the brewing's done, it's basically going to sound like this. which is actually not very loud. Or maybe we should go with the guitar sound. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I'll figure something out and we'll wire it all up and hear what it sounds like. So I think I've got the redstone sussed out pretty well. It's actually better to do that stuff when you're not recording. I don't know, just kind of takes the pressure off, right? Anyway, this right here, I've extended a bunch of fire resistance potions. Yes, there is one missing. I think the box that I put in here had one missing. And the reason that I'm doing that is because we need to run a test. And I think Cubfan uses these as splash potions. So I'll be sure to send them Cub's way. Now, what we're going to do is time this. I'll put a timer on the screen because I'm curious how long this will last for. And we're going to listen to all the sounds as well, which I think are all configured. Fingers crossed here. Okay, here we go. Right, we hear pistons first. Ah, we're going to hear that 3 times, right? Yep. And then a 3rd time? Okay. Yes. This is good. We've got a steady pulse, and then after it's going to get faster. I like it. You can hear the brewing. Now it's faster. Excellent. Admittedly, this is going to go on for a bit longer than I would like. Maybe it's a bit annoying. And then that's it. Sweet. So this gets fired 3 times and then it simply goes around the corner to make that shimmering sound. Then to get the set of beeps that go off slowly, you can see I've extended the redstone, and as it decays, it will send a signal down below, all the way underneath all this, across over to this one right here. This is the one that has the ugly sound, so we're going to go and replace it with a bone block. And then you can also see it gets powered here, and this is why it's faster, because I've just made a little, observer clock. Okay, I'm running the whole thing again. This is magical, that shimmering sound. Now we get the beeping. And yeah, it's much better as a bone block, right? Okay, the clicking intensifies and it's definitely less annoying. So, awesome, job done. We're going to copy that to the other 3 of these. Well, isn't this fantastic? Everything in the book is ticked off, which means the base as it is kind of complete all over and we're ready for new projects in the future. One of those will be a Dragon's Breath farm, and I haven't forgotten about this. Tango gave us all of this Dragon's Breath loot. And we're actually going to go and put it into the machine right now so that it can be used by other hermits. Hey look, it's Cubfan, and there's some potions here for him. And he's just returned me some shulker boxes as well, which I really appreciate. That's awesome. Hey! Cub's brewing more potions! Huh, that's great. Oh, it's this one right here. Ah, and Cub approves as well. This is great. Now it's going to go faster. This is wonderful. And then it's finished. Yeah, there you go. So anyway, we've got enough Dragon's Breath to put 3 in each of these droppers up the top here. And that means that this system will be usable by the hermits. And over the back here, the redstone was different. So I added a comparator and then this observer. And it's basically going to make a bunch of different noises when it starts to use this one here. Cub also suggested that we have a place to return the shulker boxes. And so I'll add this sign and move this out of the way. There you go, they've got a place to drop off these empty shulker boxes. Okay, Cub's using the one down there, but the sounds are quieter. So we're going to just go chuck this into here. These are regeneration potions, and listen to how the sound is different. Okay, the click sound for this one is like really, really slow. Because the comparator doesn't really change a lot. And here it is, look, our first ever lingering potions brewed here, which means on Hermitcraft, every single type of potion can now be brewed, 27 at a time. How cool is that? And that is actually a really great note to end on, because now we've got a clean slate for future projects. And the next episode is the 100th of this season, so we're going to do like a tour, and then after that I've got something planned. And if you're wondering why this episode is shorter, well, I spent all of the time building this. So it is what it is, but tune in next time for a tour of the world. And then after that, we'll be undertaking some new projects. It's going to be fantastic. So thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.